Welcome to the Aural Apothecary Podcast, authentic chat about medicines, pharmacy and healthcare in the UK.
Pharmacist Jamie, Gimmo and Steve the Chemist take on controversial stories, but we keep it edgy and lighthearted.
Podcasts share their desert island drugs and joyful patient stories. Right, let's start with something funny. What do pharmacists use for contraception? Their personalities. That's right, they made me say that. Hi everyone, I hope you're all well. Welcome to this first episode of the Aural Apothecary Podcast. My name is Jamie Hayes. I'm a pharmacist and executive coach from Penarth in South Wales. What is the Aural Apothecary Podcast and why have we started it? Well, it's one of those projects and ideas that's been on the list for a while. With the first lockdown, it seemed like an opportunity to start progressing things more seriously. So what can you expect? Hopefully, you'll hear some honest and authentic chat about medicines, pharmacy and healthcare in the UK. The pod will take on topical and controversial stories, but keep it edgy yet light-hearted. It will be relevant, topical, and sometimes even fun and entertaining about all things medicines, pharmacy, and healthcare. We, the three apothecaries, are looking for somebody to speak to. We hope to share our friendship and discussions and engage with you, our listeners. It's taken years to conceive and several months in the making, which after listening to the first episode you may find hard to believe. In discussing it, we decided we're looking to bring our guests down to our level. As you will discover over the next 25 minutes or so, it's not the finished, polished product. But in the true spirit of continuous and quality improvement, we will endeavour to improve every week. And so I'll repeat that last sentence with an important addition. As you will hear over the next 25 minutes or so, it's not the finished, polished product yet. Please bear with us as we find our rhythm over the next few weeks and early episodes. We hope you like it, but we're not really here to be liked. So, who are the three apothecaries? Well, you've just heard from me. Let's introduce you to two more apothecaries. Joining me on the pod are my friends, colleagues and fellow apothecaries, Steve the Chemist Williams, STC, and Paul Gimmo Gibson. STC is one of the leading clinical pharmacists in the UK with a 30-year career in secondary care. A recognised speaker and expert on medicine safety and polypharmacy, he has an impressive academic background too. He swapped the wards for primary care, practicing as an advanced generalist now, and hasn't looked back. STC and I have known each other for over 30 years. We've lived together during our days at the Welsh School of Pharmacy in the late 80s, holidayed together, and published papers together. Gimmo, also a product of the Welsh School of Pharmacy, 1990 vintage, comes to the pod with a fascinating background too. A community pharmacist by trade, his career has seen him hold senior positions within the NHS, Welsh Government, the Royal Pharmaceutical Society and Community Pharmacy Wales. He is your thinking man's, or woman, pharmacist. His networks within pharmacy and medicine are second to none. His area of expertise, quality improvement, primary care and community pharmacy. Gimmo and I have also worked together over the years, delivering workshops and conferences. STC is in Bournemouth, Gimmo is in Cardiff, and I'm just outside Cardiff in Penarth. Welcome both. Gimmo, welcome.
Thanks, Jamie. Excellent introduction. Nice bit of expectation management there as well, which I enjoyed. So Jamie Hayes, what can I say about Jamie? He's the director of WEMREC, which is a sort of Welsh organisation down in Cardiff. He's a coach, he's an educator, and he helps teams to improve performance as well, obviously, as being a pharmacist and heavily involved in the evidence-based prescribing and supporting pharmacists across Wales in therapeutics and to use medicines effectively. I think before that, Jamie, you were up North Wales as the head of pharmacy. And my first experience of you, I think, because we never crossed at university, was when you were talking about information mastery. And I credit that to one of my sort of changes in direction in my career, because it brought me into evidence-based practice. So I'm looking forward to the podcast.
Thanks, Gimmo. STC?
Hello, Gimmo. We don't really know each other, but I'm just going to chip in there about Jamie. And as he said, we lived together for a long time. And all I can say is, after 30 years, this boy has come far. This was a man...
Further than expected.
No, this is a man who couldn't peel an orange at university. And that's all I need to say. He's come far, and yes, I'm really looking forward to the pod. Of course, you did forget to say about Steve the Chemist's morning medicine show, but more about that later.
Okay, thanks both. I'm going to turn to STC now and ask for, we have discussed some basic ground rules for what listeners can expect over the coming episodes. Do you want to elaborate a bit more, STC?
So I think, as you said at the beginning, this is a bit of a journey for us, and we're all professionals and we don't want to break the professional line. However, we trying not to be the banal football coach, if you like, giving answers to questions that are the same every week and everybody knows what they're going to say. So sometimes if we do slightly cross the line, that's not intentional, but we are trying to give an authentic view as we see it, things to do with medicines and healthcare in the UK. So, and when the guests come on, we'll also ask maybe tricky questions, but trying to just give the listener a bit more of an edge, I suppose. But as you said, also trying to keep it lighthearted where we can. Do we have any rules for ourselves? I don't know. Gimmo, do you have any? We don't have to, but...
Well, I think we would just want to keep it positive, don't we? We've, there's lots of brilliant podcasts out there to do with pharmacy, but obviously there's some difficult times out there in pharmacy at the moment, and we don't want to ignore them. But I think we want to focus on the positive sides and have a bit of fun in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not giving any oxygen to Piers Morgan, if that's okay.
Positive and pacey we want, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any phrases that we don't allow?
Going forward.
I hate that. I hate that.
I might get pinged for that then.
Any others?
Yeah, me too. I use it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. What about amazing?
Yeah.
Not that that's said too often, perhaps in healthcare.
No.
Okay, yeah. So we'll like all pods, I guess, we will learn from things and we might call things in, whether it's for fun or not. But yeah, that's just to give the listener some idea, I suppose, of what we're about.
Yeah, we'll come back to that continuous improvement theme. We will try and improve every week. Okay, let's move on then. And we haven't got any guests this week, but we will be joined by guests over the coming episodes. So it's just the three of us and a chance for our listeners to get to know the three of us. We couldn't start a podcast during this time without reflecting on the pandemic. So over to you, Gimmo. Your 1 year reflection on the pandemic so far, trying to keep it positive. One thing that you would like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I guess taking a positive spin on it. So I've done a few things during this pandemic, and like a lot of people, been taken way outside my comfort zone. And I think what I've seen is some sort of transformation of some aspects of healthcare that wouldn't have been possible in such a short period of time. And I think the legacy of that will live with us. One of the things I've done in work, in my day job, is I developed a toolkit to help people reflect and learn on their COVID experience, if you like. And what comes out of that is obviously lots of innovation, and we can all think of some innovations around technology and vaccinations and drugs and how we treat things. But I think what's really interesting as well is what it allows people to stop. So it's those defunct practices and those things that were taking up time or that were wasting the healthcare system that we've got rid of. So I think positive thing for me is the way that we've been able to transform rapidly in a way perhaps that we haven't been able to in the past.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely great, Gimmo. And Jamie, you talk a lot about unlearning, don't you? And I think that's what you're talking about, Paul, isn't it? So sometimes it's really hard to get practitioners to unlearn things. I
think it's unlearning, and I think it's a term that me and Jamie sort of love, and we might come back to another time, is that the idea of things like failure demand and waste, and sort of the amount of stuff in the healthcare system, that the amount of time and effort that we waste doing things that either add no value or that are there because of a reason that we can't quite fathom. So, but stopping those things, that unlearning, is really difficult. Yet when we're faced with this sort of crisis, it's actually forced us into a position where we've got no choice. So I think the legacy will be and how we work will be really positive.
Yeah, for me, I think the teamwork thing has been so impressive. Everybody has tried so hard to come around in relation to dealing with the pandemic. But the one reflection that I think I will give is that perhaps that the public, and this is a wish, I suppose, obviously we had all that clapping on the doorsteps for the heroes, and I don't know about others, but I don't think we are heroes. That's our job, isn't it? And so healthcare people, in the same way as teachers and police, public servants, if you like, people who provide a public service, we choose to go into that and we want to do it. So we're not looking for hero status, but I just hope that as a consequence of this, the public will remember that for longer. And if you like, when they understand that if you want to have a health and social care service for the next 10 years and beyond that can provide all these things, free of access, we are going to need to, and I don't mean this to be political, but we are going to have to, as a public, understand that has to be funded. I've been helping out with vaccinations this week, and people say, oh, it's amazing, the NHS is fantastic. So I wish that will last longer than perhaps it sometimes does, because otherwise we're often always given adverse publicity, really, aren't we, in the media?
Yeah, absolutely agree. Okay, thanks. Thanks both. Let me just add to my reflections, I suppose, and I'm going to be cheeky and take two, which are poles apart. They're both personal. One, during the first lockdown, was my appreciation for the nature that was on my doorstep. That was massive, and to listen to the bird song that was in the local woods during those walks when you could go out for your exercise was stunning and a real reminder. And then the flip of that is my discovery of Zwift indoor cycling, and the virtual world of indoor cycling has been fantastic for my exercise and well-being and training. So they're my two reflections. Not quite as professional as you boys, but there we are. Paul, Gimmo?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so while me and Steve sort of waxed on about the sort of the professional transformations that have gone on, yours was all about you.
We're the altruist.
So maybe that gives you an insight into how this podcast is going to go.
Well, I'm just trying to point out well-being tips for our listeners.
Yeah,
Nature and Zwift, 1 and 2.
That's why this podcast is going to work, because we're not all the same. But yes, you're right, Gimmo.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
We're the altruists here.
Okay, so thank you for your pandemic reflections. That's good to kick us off. Next, I'm going to ask STC, really, to talk us through what we've got planned for our guests. So we do have a guest list planned for the coming episodes. Exciting people from the world of pharmacy, medicines and pharmaceuticals. And when they join us, we will put them through their paces. And so, STC, can you share with us what we've got planned?
Yeah, so one of the things during the pandemic, I've listened to a lot of podcasts, which is when Jamie suggested we might do this. I was like, yep, I think we could have a go at that. And it's not easy. But having listened to lots of pods, I think having features is helpful. So what we thought was we came up with these ideas, which we've honed. And whenever we get a guest in, we will ask them a couple of things, which will then be almost filed under the Aural Apothecary lists that we'll be keeping. So the first one is this idea that I use when I do some polypharmacy deprescribing teaching, and we talk about desert island drugs. The idea is not who could be clever and take adrenaline, hydrocortisone and a bag of fluid, but a bit like desert island discs. It's tell us about a piece of music, if you like, that evokes a very powerful memory. Because just like when you listen to desert island discs, it's not your favourite music necessarily. It's the ones that evoke a really powerful memory. So we're going to test this now as an example. So, Gimmo, can you give us one of your desert island drugs?
Okay, so I've gone not so much a memory. One of the things that Jamie points out, I've been lucky enough to have a few jobs in pharmacy. I think if I'm like a stick of rock, if you cut me down the middle, you'll see pharmacy running through it. That's always been at the core of what I do. And so the drug I've picked is actually aspirin, which is possibly one of the drugs you actually would want to take to a desert island. But I think aspirin just sums up pharmacy. Everything about it. It's one of the oldest drugs, or it's a drug, sorry, that dates back the furthest in history in terms of what we know about it. I think the records go back to Greece and the use of willow leaf tea. I think it's got a multitude of uses. It's obviously traditionally for fever and for pain relief, but more recently we found it's actually a bit of a miracle drug in cardiovascular disease. There's trials for cancer. I think I read a stat, there's something like 400 clinical trials ongoing about using aspirin in various things. I got into pharmacy because I enjoyed chemistry, as a lot of people did.
Yeah.
So I've forgotten a lot of chemistry, but I think I could still pick out acetyl salicylate in an identity parade.
Ooh, I think
I think
that's next week.
It's got a really sort of simple but interesting chemistry to it as well, and it's recognisable. And so I just think aspirin is a good analogy for what I love about pharmacy.
That is a proper solid start. I mean, we can't say fairer than that on the Aural Apothecary to start off with aspirin, and it begins with an A. I mean, thank you for attending to my OCD, to be honest. So that's just to give you an idea of the sorts of things that we're going to be asking our guests. And one of the other things that we're going to be asking them about is what book has really influenced them during either their career or possibly their life that they would like to share with the listener, and also would be worthy of us then filing in the Aural Apothecary Library, as it were. So, Jamie, why don't you have a stab at this?